Right.
All right, welcome to Intuition to Income. This is Abby Gooch, and I am so excited to be here with my new friend Kairi. It's like one of those people, it's a new friend yet an old friend. I call him a kindred spirit. So I am so glad he's here. He's genuinely just such a beautiful person inside and out that has been walking the intuitive path like in amazing ways. And he taught me something before we actually came on the show about our inner being and how that really is our intuition. So I'm so excited for him to share his wisdom today and help you connect with your intuition, your inner being, and just really be that bright light you are in the world. So Kairi, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, my name is Kairi Jeffries, and what do you want to know about me? I'm just a happy guy that just loves people, loves beautiful things, and love seeing the best out of things. You know, getting the most enjoyment out of everything that I encounter. Sometimes you don't do it right away, but eventually we find the beauty in it all. You know, contrast is definitely beautiful for all of us.
So beautiful. So I have never in my life interviewed somebody on my show that doesn't say what they do, their titles, or anything, that introduces themselves just as a happy person. That's beautiful. I love it.
I can give you my title.
Oh no, we'll go there. So I will tell you all. He actually created a product, so he works with the body in an amazing way, and I'll have him share more about his product a little bit later and how it's been helping so many people. But what I'd like to dive into first, Kairi, is really the way you got to where you are, which from what I understand of our conversations previous is you really followed your intuition. Like you trusted that inner being, as you say, to guide you in the midst of everything, right? And you saw the good, but it really was that inner being just guiding you. So I'd love to share like how you connected with your intuition and how you had the courage to follow it and what happened as a result.
Well, connecting with it, I realized later that I've always been in tune. It's that little voice inside. And I guess when you're younger, you don't really pay too much attention to it, or you kind of take it for granted. You're like, oh, you know, something told me to do that. And when you didn't do it, you're like, darn, I should have listened to that voice. But as you grow older and you start, you know, exploring yourself as well, you start realizing that there's so much more to you than what you realize, that, you know, all of your answers do come from within. You know, it's all inside of you, and it's all about tuning to the source within you in order to, you know, get the best out of life and have the most fun and enjoyment out of life that it has to offer. And it's, I mean, life is nothing but a platform that to have joy and fun and to be interested and have passion about so many things. And when you start listening to that inner voice, to your inner being, you start finding so many more things instead of just what someone else found and just following someone else's path, because their path is their path. But you start to realize that your path may differ and things may come to you in different ways, but it's because of who you are, because we are all uniquely different from each other. You know, no two are the same. So you learn to start embracing that, you know, realness of who you are, and you start to appreciate your differences in people, and it just begins to get more interesting and fun. I say at that point. So many times you don't know where you're going, and you realize it's fine because where you end up and that journey is so beautiful. It's so uplifting in many ways. It's so enlightening. It's very, very enlightening. And you start appreciating that moment when you're like, I don't know where this is going, but I just feel like I should do this. Yeah. And you do it, and you're like, wow, you know, I never would have thought. You know, how many times have you been doing something and something just told you, oh, go this way instead, or do this, or introduce yourself to someone. Now, I'm a naturally very shy person and very quiet. Yeah. And so many times I just was pushed to introduce myself to someone or say hello to someone. And so many times I did not. And it was just like an average experience. But those times where you just kind of follow that gut feeling to do that, oh my God, it's so wonderful. It's not what you thought it would be. It's not that, oh, I'm so shy, I can't do that. It's like, wow, what did I open myself up to? And it's amazing. So
I
you
love
start
it.
learning to do that more and more. And it's always a journey. It's always a journey. That's one thing to remember. You're never done. And it's always a journey, and you're always learning, and you're always, discovering things, and you just learn to appreciate the unknown, which I
Mm-hmm.
guess is the hardest thing for a lot of us to do, because especially me, because you always want to know, where you're going. I don't want to open this door unless I, who's behind here.
Right.
And when you just go with it, it's euphoric. It really is.
Mm-hmm. It's like the happy mystery. It's like your intuition says go here. You don't know what's going to be there, but there's
Yeah.
going to be some gift, some goodness.
You're opening up the prize, and you don't know what it is, and the box is this big, and you open it up, and the prize is this small, but it's really this big, even though it's this small.
Totally.
Diamond in the rough.
I love it. I love it. So how is it that you connect with your intuition? Like, what is the process where you're like, hey, I'm tuned in, I'm connected to source. This is my knowing of I'm in my intuition.
It's more or less a feeling. I notice many times, and I've been noticing it more and more, that I would start to get into things, whether I'm working on a project or working on like a thought, an invention. I'm an inventor. And many times I'll just start, tootling with things, and you never know what it comes to. And I just noticed that I just kind of get in the zone. And about almost 3 years ago, I tried to meditate. And I was always not against meditation, but I'm like, I just can't do that. I don't know what it is. I don't want to sit here and do this pose and that pose and everything. And then I learned that you don't have to be in a certain pose. You don't have to be in a certain environment, that you just have to be in a comfortable place and just kind of let yourself go, tune out, like let go of everything. And I've learned to maybe listen to something that's mundane and boring kind of, and just zone into it. And it's amazing, because after a while of doing that, you just, thoughts start appearing, and you don't even know where they're going, but it just feels good. And stories start playing, and you have no idea where it come from, but it's enjoyable and it's good. And then I realized not too long ago that I used to meditate all the time when I was a kid, but I didn't know what it was. I always have been the person that I needed to be in front of a fan. My mother would come up to my room because I couldn't sleep without a fan. And my mother would come into my room in the wintertime, and it's like 0 degrees outside. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan.
Crazy.
And she would be so annoyed because I would have my fan on and I'm wasting electricity. And, and she would come up into my room and turn it off. And I would learn to just get quiet when she turns it off. And I would be very uncomfortable for about 10 minutes. But I knew if I waited and she would go back to sleep, that I could turn it back on, and I would actually get peaceful enough and relaxed enough to where I would fall asleep. But I could not fall asleep without it. And I've been like that for as long as I can remember. And now I realize that that was my form of meditation. When I would ride in the car, I would be, when I was a kid, I would always remember being in the back seat, wanting the window down, but I would crawl on the floor, on the floorboard behind the passenger seat or driver's seat. And I would just chill out there. And it would be the most enjoyable thing ever. I would just go in my little fantasy world. But I was so in tune, I guess, then. I was so, it was just so fulfilling. And now I realize that that was my form of meditation. And now I'm getting back into that, after, not knowing what it was. Now I really appreciate it. And, oddly enough, when I'm driving is when I get most of my ideas. I'll be driving down a highway and driving down a road, or I used to go back and forth to, when I moved to New York from Detroit, I was still modeling. And I would go back and model for some clients back in the Midwest. And through that journey, going through Pennsylvania and Ohio, I would always have these ideas going through my head, and it would be interesting how they would build. It would start with one thing, and it would just build into something. And I was like, wow, but I never wrote them down. And it wasn't until later I started writing things down. And that's when I actually came up with my first real invention and got it patented. And that was it's called a drain scoop ice scoop. It was the ice scoop that had slots in it, so it drained water from ice when it melted. So you would never get water in your drink when you're scooping ice. When it melts, you would just get pure ice. And I just started following that. It's like whenever I started, getting ideas of things, I just started writing them down. And the funny thing is, there was this one idea that I wrote down. This was several years ago, almost 10 years ago, 8, 9 years ago. I was walking from work and it was raining, and I was like, I hate when it rains, and I drove, because whenever it rains and you're driving, you would always get soaking wet when you're trying to pull the umbrella down, because it would fold in this way and you'd have to be outside where you don't scratch the car, and you would still get soaking wet. The car would get soaking wet. And even when you're going indoors, when you're going in the door, you have to hold it out and pull it in, and you would get wet doing so. And I thought then, what if you had an umbrella that closed the reverse way? And I don't know if you've seen the infomercials on Facebook, but it came out and I was like, oh my God. I thought of that like 8, 9 years ago. And I told one person, and they're like, oh, they have an umbrella that does something with wind, and it doesn't fly away when the wind comes. And I just forgot about the idea. And now it's dawning on me like, wow, you should really, really follow those things, because you never know where they end up. And 8, 9 years later, someone's probably making tons of money on it, and good for them. But it's like, it's not one of those things that you feel bad about, but it's actually an enlightening moment where it's like, wow, you are capable of so much more than you realize when you just follow your gut feeling, following your intuition.
And I love that you said it comes through you. I was talking to one of my best friends. She actually just called me as we're doing this interview, and I was talking with her and just getting into that just high state that you're talking about. And to me, we'll go into that more later. The meditation is accessing a consciousness that's a state of being, is what it feels like to me. But to your point, it was like the same thing when I first started my company. I was at my computer and the words literally wrote themselves through me, life force connection. And so then I'm walking with her, probably just like a week ago or a few days ago, whatever it was. And I'm like, oh, started online business. Like my curriculum already teaches people how to do that. That's what's happening. And it was like, you don't think about it, it just comes through. So that's intuition. You're in a state of being. So whether it's a fan, that I actually believe there's something with your brain that probably levels it out when there's something consistent. So like,
that's exactly what happens. It quiets your mind.
Yeah.
And you start receiving messages from your inner being that knows everything about you. So when you quiet your mind from your conscious thoughts and your worry and things like that, you start to receive the flow of information that your inner being has. And, and those are those voices. It's like, do this, do that, come this way, go that way, go and buy that. No, go to this store instead. Things like that. You have so many coincidences where you just happen to go this way, and it's the way you never go, and you end up finding the most amazing thing, or meeting the most amazing people, or having the most amazing finds. And that's what that is. So you're quieting your mind, and you start receiving what's already there, what your inner being is feeding to you.
Is prompting. It's like there's a gift there if you trust it. And it reminds me of a time. So we have a nonprofit for kids, right? So we teach intuition. So one of our projects was Bali, and there was this orphanage that we were guided to go to, right, online. I found it actually with my mind, but then we get there and my intuition guides me to this other store, the opposite direction from the orphanage. I get to the store and she tells me about another orphanage, which is actually the one that we did way more work. So it's kind of like, your mind can be like, hey, go here, it's like a good direction, right? Like we have the vision, our intention, where we're going. But then it's like, if we open up to what's even greater, there's even a bigger orphanage, there's even more money, there's even more love, there's always more, right? From that place of that higher consciousness. So Yeah, I would love for you to share, so everybody can have that experience because it's available to us all, right? So we're clear,
Yeah.
like, okay, meditation takes us there, intuition guides us there. How, again, can everybody access it? Like, I can tell you the way I do it, but I'm curious, how do you, Kairi, like every day, wake up and even have a practice of being able to connect to your inner being, to your intuition?
What I do is I get up and I may go to the bathroom and have some water, and I'll usually take my raw nutrition. It's my supplement that I invented. It kind of gets me in a great mood, and I go back either on the couch or in my bed in front of my fan usually, and I just sit. I give myself a timer of 18 minutes, and I just sit and I just listen to the fan until I just get into this. I get into this state to where I can't even feel. I can't feel my toes. I can't feel my fingers. Sometimes my head starts bobbing and things like that. But once I'm in that place, I know I'm just completely quiet, and I have like that's my ground zero. And from that point on, I do my best to just, go in the direction of better feeling things. And whenever you're going in to the direction of doing good feeling things, you're in tune with your inner being. It's nothing, and this is a misconception I had. I was thinking, well, this is something grand and something, special, and only is supposed to be a certain way. And the certain way that it's supposed to be is just to feel good. Like it can be getting coffee instead of having espresso, which I don't drink coffee. I would only drink espresso. Um, and I don't really like caffeinated stuff, but it would be just doing something that feels good. You may have a routine and you may, have the urge to break your routine. And when that happens, I encourage you to definitely break that routine. And if you're in a good feeling place, do it. And that's when you start finding the beauties of life, because it's not going to be around doing the same thing over and over. It's going to be around listening and doing the good feeling things at every opportunity you get. So how I do it every day is I get in the, that place where I'm central, my ground zero, and I just follow what feels good. I may have a project to work on, and I may have this anxiety about actually working on the project, and may go and work on my car, do some little maintenance work on my car, and in the meantime, I go back to the project, and something happened to where it made it so much easier to do. Instead of doing what I had planned on doing, something else happened, or I got an email and it changed the direction of the project. So it's just following your intuition, which is going to guide you to where you need to be, because your inner being already knows where you want to go. So it's just, following that flow of information that it's giving you. And the best way to do that is just by getting quiet and then following the good feeling thoughts. Good feeling thoughts, not the worry. The good feeling thoughts, not, what's expected of you. And that, I think, is the hardest thing to overcome, because we're trained to, work hard and do this, and you have to do it this way, and you have to do it that way, and you have to, push forward and go against the grain. And many times it's, you'll get there, but it's going to be the very, very hard way. And when you just relax a little bit and step back, there's a broader view, and it'll just take you the right way, and you'll feel great all the way. You'll feel much better and less stressed and less worried, doing it by just good feeling things. Sometimes just taking a walk right in the middle of a project. How many times have you been in a project and you just can't think? It's just, you're against the wall, you have a timeline, and you're trying to get an idea and you can't really get it, and everything you do is not really working out, and you take a break. You say, I'm just going to take a break. Most people don't think about that. Taking a break was actually what actually helped them to get on the right path, but it's that taking the break that released all that negative information, that negative energy, and then you started flowing with your source energy, and you started following that, and then you just did that one little thing different, or that timing was a little bit better, and everything just began to fall into place. And that's what it's about. You got to let go. Which reminds me, the second most important book I ever read, or could have been the first, was when I used to bowl. it was a book called The Mental Game.
Mm.
And I use it with everything that I do, especially fitness, which everyone thinks I work out constantly. And I really don't work out too much because I've learned it's a mental connection. And you mentally guide your body the way you want it to. And when you're doing exercises, it's your mental connection to the exercises and the muscle that does the work, and not the actual force of doing a push-up or a bench press or a curl. Because if you're not mentally connected to that, it does not work nearly as much. When you're mentally connected, you can drop half the weight and have a much better workout. Because that muscle and your mind is focused on the development of what you actually want, rather than just going through the motions. Mm-hmm. And that mental game taught you, learn it consciously. You have to make sure your backswing is this, and slide to the line, and focus and keep a knee bend. But once you consciously learn that, which doesn't take too long, and you repeat it a couple times, then the most important part is to trust what you've learned. Because your body now has learned the movement. Now you have to trust your subconscious mind, which has already learned what you're supposed to do, and let it flow and let it do its thing. Because when you consciously try to do it, you're going to make many more mistakes than if you just let it happen. And there was a phrase in that book that was just let it happen. You got to learn, let go, and let it happen. And that's when things start flowing. And that's the most important thing that I've ever read in my life, actually. And it pertains to everything.
Beautiful. I love it. So you need to write a book. It's so beautiful. And I'm wondering, how did following your intuition lead you to creating, I think it's called Rawtrition, which is basically a way to feed your body. But I want you to maybe understand, help people understand how it works, how you created it, how it works. But I guess just because it's about intuition, first of all, how did your intuition guide you to create it? Because I know it was a very organic process. It wasn't like your conscious mind being like, I'm going to do this. Like, I know you.
Well, and it was my intuition that actually helped me invent this product. Because when I was a little boy, I was in the doctor's office a lot, and I had sinus infection after sinus infection, throat infection, and I was constantly going there. And it was a wake-up call. And I was somewhat, and I don't even know why, I didn't like science too much, but I was fascinated by the body. When I learned muscles, I knew I could name 100 different muscles in the body, and all the bones in the body. And I was just fascinated by that. And there were certain subjects that I was just fascinated by. And it's actually helped me in the development of my product. Just that knowledge and that understanding is more of what it was. And the understanding of the body, and how amazing the body is, and how the body is geared to, when in balance, take care of itself. It's the most incredible machine ever built. And I went to the doctor constantly, and I was constantly on antibiotics. It's like, I went in there again, and my Dr. Rayford, he said, oh, yep, you have another throat infection. I don't know what's going on here. Yep, you have a sinus infection. Bless you. So he went, and I remember this moment so vividly. I'm sitting there, and it's another visit, and I was there maybe a month ago, and I just finished some antibiotics and things. And he went over to this book, and he opened this book, and he's like, sore throat, and he was literally, he was speaking out loud when he was doing it. And he was looking up a symptom, and then going, say, okay, so we'll give you this. In that moment, I knew something's not right. And I did not want to continue taking those. And that's when I started, like, just my fascination about the human body, learning of, what things can help a sore throat, and and then I started getting into all kinds of supplements and things like that. And I started to realize that, all this stuff, it's so synthetic. And my gut was like, this isn't the right way to go. But it was the right way to go from where I was. Because from where I was, I couldn't see what was to come, because I had to go through my journey. So I went through the journey of using tons of supplements and using tons of synthetic stuff. And then I discovered, the benefits of microalgae, and how incredibly dense in nutrition it was. and how it really gelled so well with the body, and how your body, utilizes, over 95% of all the nutrients from that, where when you take a pill, you're getting like 10% of it. And when I finally had my first algae product, I think I told you this story. I was working on my computer, and I was working on a project with a patent, I believe. And I said, okay, I'll just work on this for another hour. And I was a little tired, but I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And I said, well, let me just take this because I just got it in, and, took it. And 3 hours later, I'm on my computer. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm feeling like great. And I was like, didn't know 3 hours went by. The project was just flowing, and I realized how focused I was. But even when I first took the product, I realized this. It was like my eyes opened. It was like, you splash water in your face and you're like, I'm revived.
Yeah.
That's what I felt within minutes of taking it, literally within 15 to 30 minutes of taking it. And that's when I realized, wow, there's something more. I've been, I appreciate all this stuff that I've been taking. And it took me a little while to get rid of it, because it was kind of like, well, I know this is supposed to work, but I'm feeling that this is the right way to go. And you go through that push-pull for a while until you start to trust more. Because the more you do with something, the more you see, wow, this is right. And this does feel right. And this does feel right. And when you start going with that, it's unbelievable. And that was the start of me figuring out, my raw nutrition formula. I ended up combining some very specific microalgae with extremely powerful and efficient superfoods. And it just began to be amazing. And I used it for myself for many years. And when I started sharing it with people, like one of my coworkers, I used to bartend, we used to always get wasted, and we'd work long hours, and we have to come back early and do doubles. And I was the only one. I was known for being happy and cheery. And they're like, oh my God, we're exhausted. Why are you so happy? And I was always the one bouncing around. And I was literally known for that. And one of my coworkers came in, and he was struggling. And I said, well, this is mine. I was going to take this afternoon because I took some this morning, but I'm going to give it to you. And I gave it to him. And within an hour, he was like, bro, what was that? I'm like, oh, it's just what I take. And he was like, I'm like, how are you feeling? He's like, I feel good. I can't believe, like, I feel like pretty good. And we worked, and over time, I started giving more people that. And it was amazing to me the effect it had on them. But the effect that it had on me was like, it was the only way I knew how to be. It was the only way that I knew how to feel. Like, I always felt healthy being on this stuff, and never knew that it made that big of a difference for other people. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where everything started. So I said, you know what? I want something that's like a Red Bull, but healthy. Everyone's taking this Red Bull, and it's full of, all this stuff and artificial stuff, and makes you like this and anxious and everything. And then you crash, and you're constantly needing it. And I'm like, what if they use my stuff? And I knew no one would, want, it's like, what are you talking about? We know Red Bull. We don't know what the heck this stuff is. But once they had it, they're like, wow, it's a different feeling. It's more energy. It's more extreme mental clarity, and there's no jitters and no crash. And it's giving you that from nutrition. It's penetrating through the cellular level, rejuvenating your cells. When you have cells that are, working a little bit, and the older you get, the more you ache, and the more I'm like this. I'm 30 years old. Of course I'm supposed to feel this way. Or I'm 35 or 40 or 50. Of course, this is what we all feel. And my thing was, we don't all have to feel that way. You don't have to decline with age. You can still feel great and do great things when you take care of your body, because your body will take care of itself. Mm-hmm. As long as you give it the nutrition that it needs to sustain itself, to sustain that balance that it needs in order to, have the wheels keep going. And it'll do its job. You just have to do your job. You give it what it wants and what it needs, and you feed it, and it will take care of you, and you won't feel like you're 30 years old or 40 years old or 50 years old, and you got to get on the couch, you're going to be out of breath, and and not do the things that you used to do. You know, my friends are way younger than I am, and they think we're the same.
I know. I actually asked him before we talked how old he was, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "You look like 10 years younger than you actually are." So it's really funny. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I know other people like that too. It's like they do not look their age at all.
Yeah, and it's like if I were to go in there and just, you know, hang out with my friends and not say a word, they think I'm way younger. But then if I start talking, they're like, okay, this guy's been around for a little bit. What's going on? How old are
Knows too much. Yeah, that's funny. That's awesome.
But it's cool. But that's where it all began. It was like that knowing, and listening to that knowing that this doesn't feel right, and you know, I think I should go in this direction. And it was just, you know, little by little going in this direction, following that intuition that's always there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, it's always there.
Yeah.
But are you in the receptive mode to hear it?
Yeah.
And that's what practices like meditation and having things that you're passionate about, like when you're engaged in a project, you know, people that love video games, they're most acceptable to getting ideas when they're in those games, because they're in that receptive mode, because they don't have any resistance while they're playing it.
Mm-hmm.
When you're playing sports and when you're having fun and when you're on the beach and when you're horsing around and doing relaxing things, that's when you're in that receptive mode to where you're able to, you know, get incredible ideas for what your ultimate passion is, and your inner being knows what you want. So, you know, it's different for everyone for what it is, but tuning into yourself, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. You know, you don't have to be like this person or that person. Just be yourself and be happy, and you'll find your way, and it will be the most beautiful journey with the most fun along the way. And that's what it's about, you know?
I love that. I mean, I just love that, like, it's already there. Like, you don't have to go seek it and find it. Like, it's actually, you just got to open up to it, you know, that it's, like you said, it's already there.
And it's great words, because the more you seek it, the longer it takes to get it, because you're looking for something knowing that you don't have what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that energy of, I don't have it, where is it? That's preventing you from actually following it, because you're not in that receptive mode when you're, you know, in the knowing that I don't have it. But when you're in the, this feels good, that feels good, then it's right there. And it's just, this feels good and this feels good. It's like you're just following all these pieces of candy, you know, saying, oh, come eat me, oh, come eat me, oh, come eat me. And it's like, oh my God, this is great. And then once you find the greatness, it never ends. There's more greatness and more greatness and more greatness and varieties and things like that. But when you're like, well, I don't see it, I don't have it, blah, 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 then you're stuck there. And then you're stuck, you know, in that energy vibrational standpoint of that point of attraction, which only attracts, you know, that which it is like, you know, that which is like upon itself is drawn. And you're there and you have this process, this thinking process. So you're only attracting things of a similar vibration, to where when you're, you know, in that good feeling place and you're loving where you are and knowing that you want more and wanting more, but still loving where you are, you just start attracting more of what you are. You have to appreciate where you are in order to move further to get more of what you want. You know, it's that appreciation for now, because you're always in the now. You know, you can't, you know, live in the past and live too far in the future. You got to live and appreciate now. You want things in the future, but you have to be able to appreciate now in order to receive, you know, what you ultimately want. And it's always going to change, because we're always changing. You know, you have so many different things in life that changes your perspective, and they're right to do so. Because like I said, for me as a kid, I didn't know where I was going with, this doesn't feel right, this feels better over here. And now I see, when I look back, it's like, wow, it all makes sense. And it all makes sense with me being fascinated with the body. And it all makes sense with me being, you know, infatuated with muscles and things like that. I actually got into shape in a remarkable amount of time, from being this nerdy, out of shape guy that bowled to being a model. And, you know, the before and after pictures are, they're laughable. You would see them and you would be like, what? Is this the same person? And so many people said, you look so much older then. The before picture, and the before picture was 20 years ago. You know, actually it was 25 years ago. And it was like, well, you know, it makes sense. But once you start, you know, getting into it, you feel younger and you look younger, because you're all that stress is gone. All that negative momentum and energy is gone. All that resistance is gone. It's being flushed away, and you're free now. You know, you're not being, you know, suffocated by, you know, worry and fear and contrast and things like that. You're embracing and wanting and enjoying, you know, where you are and where you're going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That makes all the difference in the world.
I love that. It's funny. I was just writing a newsletter to my community, and I talked about, like, what we're talking about is where you're going and feeling your heart and just letting that lead you to the first step, right? It's like just there. It's just, like you said, it's what feels best, and like we're love. So the next best feeling thought, the next best feeling action, that is an expression of your love.
Yes.
And I just love what you said and shared and created. You know, it's kind of like love inside your body. Like you've created something to help improve vitality, you know, I mean, make you younger, and just feel really good, right? It's like, why not have that boost to give your body what it needs, just to help people understand like how it can help their bodies to support their intuition. So I want to say, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's 500 billion cells are in your gut, I'm pretty sure. And so our intuition, we feel it through our gut, right? And even if you don't, I mean, I've also known some people that were paralyzed. They couldn't actually feel their gut. So still, if you can't feel something in your body, intuition is still a knowing.
Yes.
But if you can feel it, my experience is it's your gut feeling, right? And I'm saying this because when we feed our gut, our body, like I have probiotics, like those Kavita things, like every day, right? And yogurt to like get more probiotics because it's feeding my gut.
Mm-hmm.
Physical level, I know your product can help people boost their body and their immune system and their vitality to actually feel their intuition and really use your body as an instrument, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like, it's a compass of like, wow, I'm feeling my body. It's telling me this. I'm feeling my gut. It's telling me that.
And it's interesting because your gut is your central point, your solar plexus area. That's where you feel everything. Even though, you know, your inner being is flowing through all of you, that's like the central location for it. And what you eat does make a difference. And here's the tricky part. When you're balanced and when your cells are rejuvenated and they're now popping and they're not now vibrant and they're now functioning more at full capacity, that's when your eating habits change. It's interesting where you have a lot of people that want to lose weight, let's say. Tons of people wants to lose weight, and they're going for their diet and I got to change this and got to change that, but they didn't really change their attitude, and they're still seeing themselves as fat or unwanted, or, you know, they have so much resistance about weight. And the first thing that you want to change, of course, you want to give your body nutrition, but you want to change the psychological aspect of what you're feeling too. And that's one thing that I've noticed with raw nutrition is when I had given it to my neighbor, that's the first time I really realized it. And now that I think about it, I realized it the first time I took it, like when I felt that eyes open, it was a mental clarity that you just couldn't even fathom. And, you know, your brain is just much more relaxed and you're much more at peace and you're much more focused. But she had a lot more energy, and her husband did as well. And he was doing more projects at home instead of, you know, on the couch after work and everything. And they were like, wow, we love this stuff. We love this stuff. So I asked them for a testimonial. And do you know what her testimonial was? In short, it was that, which I didn't know, she was suffering from depression. She was taking her anti-anxiety or antidepressant pills, and she wanted to get off of it, but she couldn't. And after she started taking raw nutrition, she started taking it less and less. And I guess after a month, she was completely off of it and just feeling on top of the world. She had the intuition not to take these other pills that she was taking. And it just guided her to this point to where she was like amazing, like over a course of a month of not doing it and feeling better than she ever had. And now when I think about it, and which is why I call it the good feeling energy, is when you awaken your cells and they start really popping and they're rejuvenated and everything, your body is alive. You feel great. You don't feel sad. You don't feel withdrawn. You don't feel like you don't want to do anything. You feel like, hey, let's do something. Yeah. Hey, let's enjoy this. Hey, let's have a party. Let's have fun. You get frisky. Yeah. You get, you know, that inner kid in you that you thought you lost is actually there. You want to do more things with your other half, and your sex life really improves too, from what I hear. I've had a lot of people write into me about that, and I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Your body's like, it's rejuvenating, and and everything's working.
Yeah.
But it's so, that's a foundation. So when you feed your gut and you get into a better mental place, and you start acquiring that better attitude about what you're doing, your eating habits naturally change, because a lot of us eat bad things from a place of, stress, or depression, or anxiety, things like that. And then they start noticing that when they start feeling a little better and getting a little healthier, and their cells are healthier, and their body is healthier, they start eating healthier. It's a natural flow. Don't push yourself so much. It will happen naturally, especially if it is your intention to be healthier. Then it's going to be your natural instinct to navigate towards this food rather than this food. And you may still enjoy some of the bad foods, but you're not nearly eating as much as you used to. And you start enjoying more of the good foods. You start enjoying more, fruits or smoothies, and you don't have to count your calories or your sugar. When you start listening to your body knows what you want. Your body knows what's good for it. It's to completely eliminate certain things. I've always been against that, because you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to eliminate it, but you don't have to live solely off of it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When I do have that double cheeseburger or triple cheeseburger, or French fries and things, I enjoy it. I don't feel guilty about eating it,
Right.
Because when my body says, oh, that would be really, really good, I'm going to listen to my body and say, oh, that is really, really good.
Yeah.
But my body's not going to be saying that 24/7. It's going to want my salads, which my body's going to say, oh, that's going to be really, really good. The grilled or baked chicken, and you can make your sauces to where it's less oil or better oils, and less of this fatty stuff and that fatty stuff. And your body would inspire you to start buying things to enhance its good feeling state. So, listening to your gut and feeding your body the way you should be, I say feeding your body the way nature intended.
Nice.
It's the best way to go.
Yeah.
And that phrase, when I was opening or making Rawtrition and making it a brand and a product, I was talking to someone, and that just flew out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And the guy I was talking to, he's like, oh, that's it. I'm like, what? He's like, you just said it. I'm like, what did I say? He's like, feeding your body the way nature intended. I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant. You're great. He's like, no, you just said it. Yeah. And you just go with it. But it's so important. So, feed your body well, have it rejuvenate itself, which rejuvenates your mind. And one thing to know about some of the algae is they do bypass the blood-brain barrier. So you have that nutrition that is, it penetrates much deeper than most other foods. And it is the most natural food in the world, that is comprised of hundreds and thousands of nutrients, naturally occurring nutrients in the right ratio. So, trying to, which I used to do, take your E's and try to take some copper and take iron and all this kind of stuff. You don't have to think of how much of this should I take, and will this cancel this out. It's just naturally there. Mm-hmm. And your body knows it, and your body feels it, and you start feeling better, and you start feeling better almost immediately. So many people, they take Rawtrition and they're like, oh my gosh, that felt great. And, they take it for long periods of time, and they'll start to realize, especially when they stop taking it after a while, they're like, gosh, I don't feel like doing this like I was. And then they start realizing how far they've gone while being on it in comparison to where they were, and it's a gradual movement up, and that becomes your norm then. Mm-hmm. That's such an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. And then, there's no turning back. Once you know information, and once you know a certain state of being, you never want to go back to where you were. You're always advancing. You're always moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what you said about the body, like naturally kind of healing itself, right? Like having the, like you said, what did you say, heal by nature? Is that
Uh,
the word you used?
I said feeding your body the way nature intended.
Right, right. I recently had this conversation with my partner. So this is just my belief, but I'm really strong on it. But I was like, it's about vaccines, right? And I was like, okay, so people can like have these vaccines. And I said, it's so unnatural. And I would rather risk having a child, you know, being able to heal himself naturally as nature intended from the earth. Because I'm very natural. Like I'm honestly really good at it. You know, like he got sick, I got sick, I healed us both. Like
Yeah.
I just know how to do it. So I was like, I'd rather run that risk than the risk of all the epilepsy and the seizures and
Exactly.
autism that happen from these synthetic vaccine things. And, you know, I said, I know clients and friends and mothers and actually kids that I've worked with. And he turned to me and he was like, wow, that's so loving. Because before it was fighting. Like he was like, well, look at all this research. And if you didn't get vaccines and your kids didn't get vaccines,
Yeah.
what would happen? And I was like, the truth is we are meant to heal ourselves naturally. And so
Right.
alignment with what you're saying, you know, having something raw nutrition, it's from the earth, it's feeding it. And like, sure, you know, like, you know, for those of you that are watching this, it's like, you know, the whole world's got like, you know, this coronavirus thing has been like a big deal. And I'm like, all right, I know we can all heal it, you know, from our immune systems naturally.
And
So
the thing about something like that is it's all about attraction.
yeah.
When you're giving your one thing about the coronavirus is my opinion, and this may not be popular, but a lot of people may get it. But it's like when you give your attention to so much fear and doom and gloom, you start resonating with that. So that becomes your point of attraction. So you are much more at risk of suffering from something like that and attracting something like that than someone else. How do you explain how you can have a room full of people and 5% of the people gets this thing, regardless of what it is, and the others are fine?
Right.
Well, you have 5% of the people, it may not be, pushing it against that, but their vibrational stance is attracting something that they don't want, and they will attract it into their lives. Whereas someone that's more carefree and loving and not pushing against so many things are not susceptible to actually get it. And with vaccines and everything, you have so many downsides of it. And they say, well, it's proven to do this and it's proven to do that, but your body is proven to take care of itself too.
Right.
And there's one thing, and here's another important thing: it is combinations. It's combinations of feeding your body the right way and giving your body the nutrients that it needs, but it's a combination of your mental outlook on what you're doing too. Because if you're having issues, regardless of the subject, and that's a focal point in your life, like maybe a bad relationship with your mother and you're constantly talking to her, or your boyfriend or girlfriend, or your child, and if that is your larger point of attraction in your life, you may be the healthiest person in the world and constantly get sick. It has nothing to do with how healthy you are, but it's how healthy is your mind. What is your mind thinking about? What is your mind playing when you see random things in the street? And I was talking to a friend of mine, have you ever thought where you just stopped in the middle of the day and like, oh, so what are you thinking? Are you thinking, well, wow, if that person gets hit by a car, or boy, if they did that, then this could happen. And you're thinking of bad scenarios of things that can happen to people, even though you're healthy and everything. Or are you thinking, oh, that's so lovely how, they're crossing the street and they're brave, and how, oh, this person, they're on their own. And the person in the wheelchair is happy that they're rolling and happy that they're not in the bed, looking at more of the positive aspects of life. That's going to attract better things to you. Where someone worried about someone who's sick, you're not really helping that sick person. You're not giving them you're going down to where they are instead of giving them the inspiration to be, I know you want here, and I see you as being here, and you can do this, and diverting their attention away from the issue that they're having, but into a better feeling place to where that issue starts dissolving, and they'll start receiving information that will naturally correct that without them even thinking about it. When they take their mind off of what's bothering them, they usually get inspirations of things that actually lead to correcting that problem. Because the problem and the solution are two different things. You can't look at a problem and solve it. Right. You have to look away from the problem to get the solution, because the solution is always there.
Right.
but you can't see it when you're right here. It's like we were talking about the door is closed. You know, if the door is closed, you have no idea that there's this entire beautiful universe out there.
Yeah.
Because the only thing you see is what's trapped inside of this house that you don't want
Right.
to get you, that you're fearful of.
Right.
And that's your reality. But when you start opening that door and say, oh, there's fresh air out there. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, and then you oh my God, there's beautiful grass out there. Oh, look at all these bugs and lizards and animals roaming around. They're not scared. They're carefree, you know? So it's about the mental attitude that you have and your perception of things that will determine so much of what's coming to you, as well as the nutritional aspect of feeding your body the way they choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I realize these are like pre-recorded, so people might get this later, but whether it's a coronavirus or anything, it's like the principles you're talking about applies because,
Exactly.
you know, there's compassion for all, there's no judgment. Yeah, there's no judgment.
And there's no judgment, you know, for someone that is fearful of all that kind of stuff, you know, you love them how they are, and that is their path and their way, and you can't assert anything to them. You can't make them believe something, and it may be right for them. They may need that experience in order to see the light or see more light. You know, who's to say that this thing that's so, all of us have had experiences in our lives that were, you know, we want to forget or we don't want to relive, but it is that contrast that made your desire so much bigger than what it was, if you ever had that. We talked about that a little bit. It's like you can have something that was the most awful thing in the world, but it actually gave you such huge desire that you never would have had without experiencing that contrast.
Yeah.
And that's how you want to look at it. You can look at the doom and gloom, or you can look at the abundance of opportunity, of prosperity and happiness that's there. And well-being is what flows through you. And we all have it. Are we blocking it off, or are we allowing it to flow through us? And that's what it's about. And it's just about allowing all of that abundance of well-being to flow through us, you know, in every moment.
I love it. I love it. Well, how can people get access to your product, to you? I don't know if you do coaching as well, but I know you definitely have this amazing product. So how can people get it?
Well, I don't do coaching. I do coaching with my friends over
He's my coach. No, I'm just kidding.
And you know what? It's so incredible because sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, and I end up talking to a friend and having like a moment and things just start flowing. And it's like you're talking to yourself when you're talking to them. So it's beneficial for both. But you can contact me and see my products on rawtritionbioenergy.com. That's a long name. So if you want it short, it's rawtrition.net and not .com, rawtrition.net, which is why I like to say rawtritionbioenergy.com. I'm working on actually changing everything to a much simpler name, and it'll be rawtritionusa.com. And just have everything pointed towar's that.
Could you do me a favor and actually just spell it for everybody, just to make sure that they can, you know, type it in and get it?
Sure. It's RAWTRITION bioenergy, BIOENERGY.com.
Okay.
And it will soon be rawtritionusa. .com. And I may do that today. It's been on my list of things to do. But you can see all my products, and stay tuned. Next month, I'm coming out with my new joint formula.
Nice.
Just to let you know, my mother and my family has been huge awards of mine. It's been very rewarding because they benefit a great deal from my product. My mother had arthritis in both shoulders and both knees. And after using Rawtrition, which is great for joints, she has not taken her arthritis medication in almost 4 years now. No pain killers, and she used to take 800 milligrams of Motrin every day. And when she bowled, she used to take them twice a day. She has not had any joint pains since taking it. And I recently found out through our conversations that she had gout. And I was like, really? And we're talking, and I had this joint formula that I made 1.5 years ago but never used until I hurt my knee. And I went through a month of not being able to walk and having assistance getting up from a good friend of mine. And I stumbled onto this joint formula that I had, and I was listening to the doctors taking, you know, my anti-inflammatories and all this kind of stuff, and heat packs and compressions and ice and all that, and going through that whole pattern, and it didn't help. And my knee was 3 times the size. After 2 days of taking my joint formula that I found, that I realized that I had, I was able to walk. And then I started walking. I was doing 12-hour days, doing events, and walking for 12 hours over the entire property of a hotel that I was working at. And I decided to give my mother this so she can work on her gout. And I was like, you know, maybe if you take it for, you know, a month or two, you know, go back to your doctor and see how you feel and see, you know, what the results are, but just take it for a good month or two, you know, to allow it to work in your system. And I was surprised that the raw nutrition didn't work, but the joint formula is much more intense, focused on anti-inflammatory effects. And I talked to my mother the day before because she didn't take it, and I sent it to her, and I'm like, what are you doing? But then the next day, she ended up texting me. And I was like, oh, what's this about? And it was a story. And she texted me that, you know, the day that we talked, she was playing with her tablet in the dining room, and she had her arm propped up a certain way. And then after playing on her tablet, she couldn't move her shoulder or neck. It was very stiff and everything. And she took, you know, some stuff. I don't know if she took Advil or something like that to try to get rid of it. And it didn't really get rid of it. And the next day it was still kind of like that. And she remembered, okay, I'm gonna start taking this joint formula. So she took it. And then an hour later, she realized, she's like, oh my God, it's gone. She's like, the pain is gone. And that was her text to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, after 1 dose? And she was like, yeah. And she told me the story in the text. So I sent it to my brother as well, because she told him, and he works 2 jobs, and he's a carpenter and a plumber. Yeah. And he works 4 days there and 4 days at his other job. And he was hurt in bed, in a lot of pain. His girlfriend was trying to give him a massage. And he coerced my mother to give him some. He took 1 dose, and his text, I can't repeat. Everything was on. He was like, his joints feel amazing. And there was tons of exclamation points in the text. And he was just amazed. So now they're on it, and they forced me to actually bring it to market. And
that's so cool.
My knee is completely normal now. It has been after a couple of weeks of taking it. All the swelling went completely down. I was walking completely normal, and all the weight that I lost from not being able to walk on that knee, it looks just like my other knee.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was great. So I'm going to be releasing that next month, which is the Raw Nutrition Joint Formula. We think we're going to call it Joint Ease.
Nice.
And then the Raw Nutrition Bioenergy, it's available in capsules, and it's available in 2-ounce shots, like a 5-hour energy shot. And the shot, you just shake and you take the whole thing. And the shots are more potent. When you take it, you're like, wow, and you feel like great. And people take it for pre-workouts. People take it, you know, like truck drivers, friends of mine would take it, and they're like good for hours and hours. And there's no crash, but there's no jitters, but you're definitely pumped with energy and focus.
Nice.
Amazing products. I take them every single day. And I love them, and I feel great all the time.
Awesome.
I want everyone to feel as good as I do.
Totally. I get it. I know. That's how I was when I started. I'm like, I feel amazing. I want everybody to feel amazing. That's great.
I gotta bounce around with someone.
Right? Totally. So is there also, just real quick before we wrap up, an email if they want to connect with you personally about their situation, their friends and family that might want to use it? Can you just share your email real quick so they can have that connection point?
Sure. You can email me at info@rawtrition.net. That's info@rawtrition, RAWTRITION.net.
Beautiful. Awesome.
And on the website, you can just contact us, and that'll send the same email to me. And I look forward to hearing from people. If you want to talk, I love talking to people and giving advice if possible, if wanted. And I love interacting with people and hearing stories and connecting with people. So.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here.
As usual, talking to you. It's Abby, you're amazing.
Thank you. We're all in it together, right? And I love just bringing all of our gifts together, helping people activate their intuitions and sharing our intuitions, because I know that that's like why we came here, right? To express that.
Exactly. To explore. And do you mind if I show? I actually have a bottle of my stuff. I can just show it if you want.
Real quick, I have 11. Go ahead. We just have somebody trying to get in right now. So.
All right. So we just have the shot formula
Nice.
of raw nutrition.
Move it a little bit over. Yep. There you go.
Okay. And then we have the capsules, which you take 3 capsules is 1 dose of raw nutrition. And you take these 3 capsules twice a day, or the shots take as needed once a day or before a workout, or, you know, it's fantastic. It's great. It tastes earthy. It tastes earthy and good. It's a very, it tastes like it should.
Nice. Bring it down to there. That's awesome. Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please feel free to reach out, Kairi, myself, and just know we're so grateful. We're all in it together. And please allow your intuition to inspire you to your next step today. All right. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.